I drove home under a flickering streetlight, the hum of the engine masking my restless thoughts. The day at work had been a blur. Numbers, logistics charts, and half-remembered phone calls. Even the usual midday coffee smelled stale. By the time I reached my driveway, a low ache pounded behind my eyes. I killed the engine, noticing the hush that fell over the suburban street. Porch lights glowed like tiny moons, and somewhere far off, a dog barked at shadows. I stepped onto the walkway, tasting the crisp autumn air. It reminded me of college nights when Julia and I would run barefoot on dew-slick grass, chasing each other until we collapsed in laughter. I forced a small smile, longing for that simpler era. Lately, everything felt tense, like a rubber band stretched too far. My phone buzzed. A text from a colleague about tomorrow's meeting. I shoved the phone back into my pocket, telling myself I'd answer later. Work could wait. All I wanted was to slip inside, maybe kiss the kids goodnight, then collapse on the couch. But as I neared the front door, a wave of unease hit me. The lights were off in the living room, which was unusual for 9 p.m. Julia always left a lamp on. She hated returning to darkness. Through the window, I glimpsed the faint glow from the upstairs hall, flickering like a distant beacon. The door clicked open. The house smelled faintly of lavender air freshener and something else. Warm, musky, out of place. My heart thudded once, a dull punch against my ribs. I couldn't see Buddy, our black lab, which was odd. Usually, he'd come bounding to greet me. I slipped off my shoes and listened. Soft sounds drifted from upstairs. Muffled laughter. A gentle creak of the bed. My mind scrambled. The kids should have been asleep. Julia normally read them a story around 8, her voice echoing through the hallway. Had she fallen asleep while telling them a tale? I crept up the stairs, each step heavier than the last, my pulse throbbing in my ears. When I reached the top, I heard a distinct moan. Sensual, throaty. My breath caught. That wasn't my voice. And the laugh that followed wasn't mine either. I froze outside our bedroom, the door ajar just enough for me to see a silhouette. 2 bodies tangled on the bed, illuminated by the flicker of the TV screen. It cast dancing shadows on the walls. She was on top, hair draped over her bare shoulders. Her partner's hands gripped her waist, guiding her movements. My entire being went cold. My first urge was to slam the door open, bellow some furious primal cry. But shock sealed my lips. Instead, I stared, paralyzed by what I was seeing. My wife. Another man. Their low gasps and urgent whispers. The sight stripped me of breath, replaced it with a serrated emptiness. My mind roared. This can't be real. But there it was. A raw, undeniable image that scorched itself onto the back of my eyes. Julia threw her head back, whispering something that sounded half laughter, half moan. The man's voice rumbled a response. I stumbled backward, my back hitting the hallway wall with a soft thud. A picture frame rattled, the glass clinking. They didn't notice. Do something, damn it. My hand clenched into a fist. I felt my nails biting into my palm, drawing pinpricks of pain. Then came a rush of red-hot rage that nearly knocked me off balance. My throat burned. My heart hammered, demanding release. Without conscious thought, I drove my shoulder into the door, throwing it wide open. Julia screamed. The man scrambled to cover himself with a sheet, his face contorting in shock. Julia tumbled off him, grabbing at the blankets. For a moment, no one spoke, the hush broken only by our ragged breathing. "Mike? Oh God," she stammered, eyes wide with horror. She looked flushed, hair disheveled, lips parted in shock. I couldn't articulate a single syllable. My gaze flicked from her face to the man's. I recognized him. Ethan Brooks, the IT consultant I'd seen chatting with Julia at a friend's party a few months ago. I dismissed their banter as harmless. Now that memory twisted like a knife in my gut. Ethan's voice came out hoarse. "Look, man, get out." I spat, hardly believing I'd spoken. Get the hell out of my house. He hesitated, glancing at Julia. She closed her eyes, as though wishing she could vanish. I took a menacing step forward, fists still clenched. He fumbled into his jeans, yanking them on. I'm sorry, he muttered, though it rang empty. With a frantic jerk, he snatched his shirt, shoes, and phone, stumbling past me out the door. I didn't move, my body shaking with adrenaline. Julia, half covered in the sheets, stared at me. Her lips trembled, tears pooling in her eyes. Mike, it just happened. Don't, I growled. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, like it belonged to a cornered animal. Not one word. Not right now. Her tears spilled over, but I couldn't find sympathy in me. My mind spun with images, raw and vile, of them together, her flushed skin pressed against his. I fought the urge to punch a hole in the wall, or in the door, or in something, just to break the tension. But the kids were asleep nearby. God. The kids. I turned on my heel and trudged down the hall. Buddy peeked out from the kids' room, ears flattened. The dog must have sensed the tension and retreated to guard them. My chest tightened. How long had they done this under my roof? Behind me, Julia called out in a hushed, frantic voice. Mike, wait, please. I didn't respond. Downstairs, the air felt suffocating. I yanked the front door open to let fresh air slap me in the face. My phone vibrated again, but I ignored it. Outside, the world carried on, oblivious. Neighbors' curtains drawn, cars occasionally rolling by. I could still hear my heart thrumming in my ears, a grim, furious drumbeat. A flood of images crashed through my thoughts. Her smile in our wedding photos, her squeal of delight when we found out we were having our first child, her laughter during lazy Sunday mornings. Now it all felt tainted, like a film of grime had settled on every cherished memory. What do? I paced across the lawn, my breath puffing in white clouds. Part of me wanted to storm back in and demand answers, but another part needed the night air to keep me from boiling over. Finally, I forced myself back inside, heading straight to the kitchen. The overhead light hummed. The clock on the microwave read 9:17. In the last 10 minutes, my entire life had changed. Julia stood at the base of the stairs, hastily dressed in a robe. Her cheeks glistened with tears, her hair a tangled mess. I'm sorry, she said softly, voice cracking. I never meant for you to find out like this. Like this? I barked a humorless laugh. So you did plan for me to find out some other way. She looked away. No, I didn't want to hurt you. My pulse hammered. It's a little late for that. I pinned my gaze on her, searching her face for any flicker of regret that felt real. She shook her head, voice trembling. It was stupid, reckless. I don't have an excuse. I just felt lonely, maybe. Lonely. My laugh came out strangled. We have 2 kids, a life, everything. And you decide to fix your loneliness with that guy. She winced, tears sliding down her cheeks. Mike, please, let's not wake the kids. She was right. As furious as I was, I couldn't drag the kids into this scene. They were upstairs, blissfully unaware of their mother's betrayal. My fists relaxed a fraction. In a clipped whisper, I asked, how long? A few months. Those words sucked the oxygen out of my lungs. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, knuckles white. My voice dropped to a brittle hush. Months, and you let him into our bedroom. She nodded, tears dripping onto her robe. I braced myself, trying to tamp down the wave of nausea. In our bed. My bed. For an instant, I thought of flinging every dish from the shelves, just to vent the rage swirling in me. But the walls felt too thin. The kids' safety anchored me in place. I swallowed, forcing my voice to remain quiet. You need to leave. She blinked rapidly. What? I can't look at you right now. Go to a friend's, or your sister's, or anywhere else. Just leave me alone tonight. She opened her mouth as if to protest, then shrank back. Okay, I'll pack a bag. I nodded, blinking away the sting of tears I refused to shed in front of her. Do it quickly, before I change my mind. She vanished upstairs. I heard drawers sliding open, the rustle of clothes. My heart crashed in my chest. Part of me wanted to beg her to stay so I could scream at her all night. Another part wanted her gone, as if her absence could erase this monstrous betrayal. A few minutes later, she descended in silence, a small duffel bag slung over her shoulder, phone clutched in her hand. Her eyes pleaded with me for some sign of mercy, but I stared at the floor. She paused in the doorway, lips trembling. I'm sorry, she whispered. I stared at the old wooden floorboards, focusing on a scuff mark near the door. Just go, I muttered. She slipped out. The door shut with a soft click. I stood there, numb. The hush of the house pressed against my ears until I realized I could hear my own ragged breathing. An hour later, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, an untouched glass of water in front of me. My phone lay face up, the screen's faint glow mocking me with missed calls and messages from Julia. The overhead light buzzed, a dull static that refused to let me rest. Buddy approached, tail tucked, and nudged my leg. He sensed my anguish, but what comfort could I offer him? The entire house felt foreign, as though I'd stepped into a nightmare version of my life. I picked up the phone. One voicemail from Julia, half sobbing, apologized again, begged me to talk. Another text from her. I love you. Please, can we fix this? I powered the phone off. Sleep wouldn't come easily, but I needed to try. When I walked upstairs, the bedroom reeked of betrayal, a sour mix of sweat and cologne. Stripping off the sheets, I balled them up and threw them into a corner. I couldn't sleep here. Not like this. I trudged down the hall, peering in on the kids. They were asleep, peaceful, unaware that their father's world had imploded just an hour ago. I tiptoed inside, kissed each child on the forehead, and tried not to cry. Everything's changed, I thought. And tomorrow, I'll have to pretend it's normal. I wandered into the guest room, my mind replaying that scene over and over. Her moan, his hands on her waist, her laughter. That was my wife. My stomach twisted. I sagged onto the spare bed, fully clothed. Rage and sorrow tangled inside me, refusing to let go. Eventually, exhaustion dragged me under. In my dream, I saw them again. Dark silhouettes against the glow of a flickering TV. This time, she turned and looked straight at me. Why weren't you there for me? She asked in a voice that felt too real, slicing my heart anew. The next morning, I awoke with a stiff neck, my body still wrung out from the night's revelations. My mouth tasted bitter, and my head pounded. I checked the time. 6:30 a.m. The kids would be up soon, expecting breakfast, a routine that must continue no matter what. My marriage might be shattering, but real life had no pause button. I peeled myself off the bed, staring at the mirror on the opposite wall. My reflection looked hollow, eyes ringed with exhaustion. I splashed water on my face, bracing for the day. I refused to call in sick. Work was my only excuse to keep moving, to avoid the swirl of questions I couldn't yet handle. As I made scrambled eggs for the kids, mechanically cracking shells, whisking them, my son wandered in, rubbing his eyes. "Where's Mom?" he asked, voice thick with sleep. My throat tightened. She had to leave early to help a friend. A half-truth. But I couldn't say, "Mommy betrayed us." Not when they were still so innocent. He accepted the answer with a shrug, plopping down at the table. My daughter joined, yawning. I served them, forcing a tight smile. They deserve normalcy, I told myself, even if that normalcy was a lie. At work, I buried myself in spreadsheets, emails, phone calls. During lunch, I drove to a nearby park, sat in my car, and wrestled with the surge of anger coursing through me. Thoughts battered my mind. How could Julia do this? Who was I now? Did she ever really love me? The day blurred, each hour trudging by. Once I returned home, the silence felt ominous. Julia hadn't come back. No note. Just an empty living room and two kids who peppered me with questions about their mom. I repeated my friend-helping lie, guilt chewing at me. That evening, after the kids fell asleep, I finally turned my phone back on. A missed call from my mother, Eleanor. My jaw tightened. How would I explain this to her? How would I even begin to say, "Mom, my wife cheated on me. My life's undone"? I stared at her number, uncertain, then dialed. She answered on the first ring. "Michael, is everything okay? You sound off." My voice wavered. I told her, in halting fragments, what happened. She exhaled sharply, then asked, "Well, how are you?" I almost laughed at the question. How was I supposed to be? "I'm furious," I admitted, "and confused. And I can't believe this, Mom." A heavy pause. "Neither can I," she said, though her tone sounded measured. "But you have to stay calm. Think of the children." Her emphasis on the kids ignited a new wave of pain. I pictured them again, so small, so trusting. Was everything about our family a lie? "Julia wants to talk," I muttered, my voice flat. "I told her to leave. I can't look at her right now." Eleanor sighed. "Maybe that's best for the moment." We ended the call soon after. Sleep came in broken pieces that night, haunted by nightmares of Ethan's grin, Julia's moan. My chest felt hollow, as if I'd lost something irretrievable. And that was just the beginning. I woke the next morning with a knotted stomach. My eyes burned from lack of sleep, but the kids needed lunches packed and rides to school. Routine felt like a shield, something to cling to in a world turned upside down. As I closed the door behind the kids, I heard the beep of the security system echo in the quiet hallway. My gaze landed on the spot near the living room couch where Julia and I used to cuddle. I shoved away the memory and grabbed my keys. At work, I managed a hollow cheerfulness in front of my colleagues. The moment I had privacy, however, I found myself scrolling through old photos on my phone. Pictures of Julia laughing at the beach, the kids building sandcastles. Each image cut deeper. "She lied," whispered a voice in my head. "And you believed everything." I tried ignoring her texts, but by lunch I broke down and opened them. "I'm so sorry. Can we talk? I need to see you, even just to explain. I know I messed up, but I love you and the kids." The bitterness in my chest flared. "You love me, and yet you did that." I typed a curt reply. "Not ready to talk. Need space." The phone stayed silent for half an hour. Then it vibrated with a new message. "I understand. I'll give you time." That evening, I sat at the table, bills spread out in front of me, half-heartedly crossing out items in the budget. The house phone rang. Checking the caller ID, I recognized my mother's number. Girding myself, I picked up. Her tone was soft but direct. "Michael," I spoke to Julia. My grip tightened around the receiver. "You did what?" She called me. She was distraught. I wanted to hear her side. My temper spiked. "Since when do you hear her side? She betrayed your son." Eleanor's voice remained calm. "I'm not excusing what she did, but I asked her how she's feeling because I'm worried about you both, and especially the kids." Anger roiled in my gut. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to stay civil. "Mom, she doesn't deserve your concern." "Michael," she said gently, "you have 2 children together. Believe me, I'm furious at her too, but I'm trying to keep perspective. This is complicated." Her words grated on me like rough sandpaper. I realized she wasn't flying into a rage on my behalf. Instead, she was calm. Almost too calm. It felt like a betrayal, as if she were taking sides. "Why aren't you outraged?" I wanted to yell, but the words lodged in my throat. Over the next few days, the kids kept asking about Julia, and I scrambled for plausible excuses. I learned that she was staying at a friend's apartment, apparently trying to sort herself out. Late one night, After the children were asleep, I rummaged through the bedroom. I needed to find any shred of evidence about how long this affair had gone on. Had she left me any clues, any sign that I'd been a blind fool? In her nightstand drawer, I found a small audio recorder, one I didn't recognize. My mind churned with suspicion. Why would Julia keep something like this hidden? I hit play. Static, then faint voices. I recognized Julia's tone, hushed and frantic. Another voice. My mother's. My blood ran cold. I couldn't tell him. Julia said, the recording crackling. He was drinking so much back then, and I felt alone. And then Ethan, my mother's voice cut in, calmly. You did what you felt you had to. But remember, if these children aren't Michael's, you have to face that truth at some point. Children, not mine. My hands trembled, the recorder slipping slightly. Julia let out a shaky breath on the recording. I never planned it. It happened during that bad spell, when Mike lost control and started passing out on the couch every night. I don't know for sure who the father is. I see, my mother said quietly. You know Michael. He won't take this well. But if you believe it's best for your sanity, you should keep it hidden. Tears stung my eyes. My own mother, advising my wife to keep secrets. The conversation ended with some rustling and a click. The silence that followed felt heavier than any sound. I slammed the recorder onto the bed, heart hammering. My mother knew. My wife lied. And the kids, a wave of anguish crashed over me. Are they mine or not? A sickening flash of memory. The times I drank too much beer after stressful days, how I passed out early, how Julia's eyes glistened with hurt. But to cheat on me. Then to hide the children's paternity. Our children's paternity. And my mother accepted it, or at least didn't confront her. Rage, betrayal, heartbreak all tangled. I had no idea how to handle this new revelation. I felt the desperate urge to break something, to rage at the injustice. But the kids were sleeping a few doors down. Instead, I let the tears come, silent, hot trails of anger and sorrow. She took advantage of my weakness to find comfort with someone else. Worse still, my mother's voice echoed in my ears, cool and composed. When I finally confronted my mother on the phone the following day, my words came out choked. You knew about the kids, about her affair. And you didn't tell me. She sighed. Michael, I had suspicions. Julia confided in me. I kept hoping she'd resolve it, that it wouldn't matter if you loved them as your own. I nearly crushed the phone. So you think it doesn't matter that they might not be mine, biologically? You think I don't have a right to know? She inhaled sharply. I'm sorry. I thought I was protecting you. By lying. I spat, hardly believing the words I heard in my own voice. That's not protecting me, Mom. That's humiliating me. We ended the call on a bitter note. I stared at my reflection in the hallway mirror, feeling more alone than ever. The next few days, anguish turned to fury. I cycled between heartbreak over Julia's betrayal and an icy determination to confront her. But every time I looked at the kids, my anger softened into confusion. I loved them. I'd raised them. Biology or not, they were mine in every way that mattered. Or so I told myself. But the humiliation burned. I wanted revenge, something to tear Julia's life apart the way she'd done to mine. And Ethan, I seethed. He won't get off scot-free. She texted me again. We need to talk about the children. Damn right we did. I asked her to come by one evening, not to stay, but to talk after the kids were asleep. She showed up, eyes red, posture wilted. We sat at the kitchen table. No friendly glances, no comfortable small talk. Just tension. I placed the audio recorder on the table. Found this. Her eyes widened, flicking up to meet mine. Mike, you told my mother our kids might not be mine. She swallowed, blinking back tears. I didn't know how to tell you. It's complicated. Complicated. I hissed. It's a damn nuclear bomb you dropped on my life. Are they mine or not? She trembled, tears sliding down her cheeks. Our daughter is definitely yours. But with our son, I'm not 100% sure. It happened around that time. My chest tightened, an ache so deep I thought I might collapse. So you've known for years that he might not be mine. Her sob turned into a wheeze. I tried to bury the guilt. You were trying so hard to fix your life, to stop drinking. I didn't want to break you even more. I slammed my fist on the table, rattling the glasses. You think this doesn't break me? She sobbed openly now, but I stared at her with unblinking anger. I'm sorry, she whispered. Get out, I said, my voice cracking. I'll handle the kids. We'll figure out legal steps. But I'm done. She froze, tears streaking her face. I felt a twisted satisfaction at the sight of her despair, like it was a fraction of what she had inflicted on me. Without a word, she left, leaving me alone in a house that felt colder than winter. Days blurred into a whirlwind of phone calls, swirling emotions, and sleepless nights. My mother tried to intervene, urging me to see reason. Her calmness grated on me more every day. Julia sent repeated messages, desperate to talk about us. But there was no us. Not anymore. One evening, I found myself in a dingy bar on the outskirts of town, ironically the same place I used to drown my worries years ago. I stared at a half-finished glass of whiskey. The bitter taste clung to my tongue, a venomous comfort. You're repeating the old pattern, a voice inside me warned. But I couldn't push away the memory of Julia's moan in someone else's arms, or the knowledge that my own mother condoned the lie about our children's paternity. My phone vibrated. Ethan's name glowed on the screen. The nerve of that bastard to call me. My throat tightened, but I answered, stepping outside into the chilly air. What do you want? I growled. A hesitant pause, then Ethan spoke, his voice low. Look, man, I'm sorry. I never meant for things to go this far. I let out a hollow laugh. You slept with my wife for months. What did you think would happen? He exhaled audibly. I know. I messed up. She told me you two were basically done. She was lonely. It was a mistake. Rage flared. A mistake is a spilled coffee, Brooks. This was a choice. Repeated. Don't feed me that nonsense. He hesitated. I called because I want to clear the air. I don't want any trouble. Trouble. My grip on the phone tightened. You destroyed my life. Or do you think it's no big deal? Okay, he sputtered. Look, if there's something I can do. You can vanish. Stay away from her. From me, from my kids, or so help me God. All right. He cut in. I'll keep my distance, I promise. I ended the call, heart pounding. My phone buzzed again. This time a text from my mother. We need to talk. Please come by tomorrow. I almost hurled the device into the street. Instead, I stuffed it into my pocket and returned to the bar. I stared at the whiskey, the reflection of the neon signs dancing in the amber liquid. Revenge, a savage voice said. Make them pay. The next day I pulled up to my mother's small house, where I'd spent much of my childhood. Memories of my father flashed. Dad grilling in the backyard, Mom laughing at some old sitcom. Now everything felt tainted. She opened the door before I knocked. Thank you for coming, Michael, she said quietly. I stepped inside, arms crossed. This better be good. We settled in the living room, the old couch creaking. She offered me coffee, which I refused. For a moment, we just sat, mother and son, two sets of weary eyes locked in a silent standoff. Julia called me, she finally said. She's worried you're going to do something drastic. I gave a bitter snort. Worried about me, or about her own hide. She's scared you'll try to take the kids away permanently, or that you'll ruin her life. I let out a slow, ragged breath. Maybe I will. Why not? She took a sledgehammer to our marriage. She lied about my kids for years. I don't owe her kindness. My mother's posture stiffened. Michael, I understand your rage. But revenge only breeds more pain. I glared at her, feeling that old anger spark. You knew about her affair, or at least suspected. And you told her to hide it from me. That's beyond betrayal. She bowed her head. I regret that. I thought, if you believed the children were yours, you'd stay sober, you'd stay happy. I never intended to hurt you. I was trying to preserve the family. Preserve it. I stood up, pacing. It's destroyed now. She rose, tears glistening in her eyes. I'm sorry. I wish I could change it. But consider the kids. They adore you. Don't punish them because of what Julia did. I turned away, hands trembling. Of course I'd never hurt the children. But the anger demanded an outlet. Someone must pay. Later that evening I left my mother's house, mind racing. If they want me to be rational, fine. I'll give them rational. My version of rational included a thorough plan to ensure Ethan and Julia felt the consequences of their actions. Over the next week, I quietly spoke with a lawyer. I laid out my intention to file for divorce, citing adultery, emotional distress, and anything else we could muster. I wanted custody, sole custody if possible. I explained my concerns about the children's paternity. My lawyer nodded, taking notes, face grim. Julia reached out again, leaving voicemails. Please, Mike, can we meet? I want to apologize. We can do a test if you want. I just want a chance. I ignored them. My heartbreak was overshadowed by cold fury. My plan was simple. Serve her with divorce papers, and, if the results proved one child wasn't biologically mine, sue for emotional damages or press for spousal support. Anything to unmoor her. Ethan. He had a reputation to maintain among his clients. I considered revealing his affair with a married client on social media, maybe contacting his biggest contract leads. A quiet email exposing his lack of ethics could sink him. Is that too far? I wondered. Then I pictured him in my bed with Julia. The memory hardened my resolve. The confrontation Julia, and I eventually agreed to meet in a public park, neutral territory. The kids were with my mother for the afternoon. As soon as Julia saw me, she tried to hug me, tears in her eyes. I stiffened, stepping back. She let her arms fall. I'm so sorry, she murmured. I regret everything. I still love you, Mike, I do. Don't say that, I snapped. You loved me so much you slept with Ethan for months, lied about our son, and turned my own mother into an accomplice. She pressed her lips together, tears streaming. I was desperate. You were drunk all the time. I felt alone. That's no excuse, I know. But it happened, and I'm trying to make it right. Make it right. My voice rose. A jogger passed by, eyeing us warily. I forced my volume lower. You want to make it right? Then sign the divorce papers. Accept my conditions. I want full custody. Her eyes widened in horror. You can't. That's not fair. Fair. I let out a short bark of laughter. Where was fair when you invited Ethan into my home? She shook her head. Don't punish the kids. They need their mother. Anger pulsed in my temples. I bit my lip, remembering the kids' bright faces. We'll figure that out in court. She sobbed, voice cracking. Mike, please. I was wrong, but I love them. I love you. I just stared, my heart a stone. I have no love left for you, Julia. I turned on my heel and left her standing there, tears shining in the autumn sun. That night, alone in the darkness of my living room, I waited until the kids were asleep. Then I typed an anonymous email to one of Ethan's top clients, attaching photos I'd taken of his truck outside my house on multiple nights. I added a short note hinting at unethical conduct, personal entanglements, and non-professional behavior. My finger hovered over send. My pulse pounded. He deserves this. With one click, I sealed his fate. I sank back into the couch, adrenaline coursing through me. The sobering realization hit. I'd become a version of myself I barely recognized, a man consumed by vengeance. But it was too late to turn back. A cold hush settled over the house as autumn gave way to early winter. Yellow leaves littered the yard, a testament to passing time. My divorce proceedings began in earnest, papers filed, lawyers engaged. Word reached me that Ethan lost a key client. A hush-hush scandal about unethical personal relationships swirling through rumor mills. One piece of revenge down. Julia tried to salvage whatever she could, sending me tearful messages, and at times, harsh ones. "You're destroying me," one text read. "Why can't you just let me apologize and move on?" Another, "The kids miss me. Don't make them suffer." I kept all communication through my lawyer, except for logistics about the children. We set up a temporary schedule. I had them on weekdays. She took them on weekends. But if she imagined an amicable arrangement, she was mistaken. I insisted on random paternity tests, though part of me dreaded the results. The day of the test, we scheduled it quietly. Julia showed up at the clinic in a puffy coat, eyes bloodshot. Our son clung to her leg. Our daughter looked confused. I forced a tight, polite smile, guiding them through the process. I felt like a stranger in my own family. After swabs and signatures, Julia pulled me aside. "This is humiliating," she whispered. I met her gaze. "You've humiliated me first." She had no retort. She just lowered her eyes, tears threatening to spill. 2 weeks later, the test results arrived in a sealed envelope. My palms sweated as I sliced it open. My vision blurred when I read the lines. Daughter, 99.99% probability of paternity. Son, less than 1% probability of paternity. I sank into a kitchen chair. The reality, spelled out in black and white, crushed my lungs. The sweet little boy who made me Happy Father's Day cards with blue crayon. Biologically, he wasn't mine. And yet, everything else about him was mine. My love, my memories, my guidance, all the bedtime stories, the piggyback rides. The tears wiped away. Tears dripped onto the paper as I folded it. Pain carved a hollow space in my chest. I thought I'd prepared for this. I hadn't. I told no one about the results at first, not even my mother. In my lawsuit for divorce, I quietly included the paternity test. My lawyer recommended the formal process of disclaiming paternal responsibility for our son if I chose. But the thought of discarding him, treating him as not mine, tore at my heart. A final confrontation, Julia demanded to meet again, and this time, I agreed, only because the kids deserved some clarity. She arrived at the same suburban cafe, where we'd once joked about future vacations. Now her eyes darted around, anxious. She leaned forward, voice trembling. The lawyer showed me the test results. I don't know how to handle this. I stared at my coffee, swirling the mug. My appetite was non-existent. Handle it by recognizing what you did. You deceived me for years. Her breath hitched. But you love him. Please don't shut him out. He sees you as his father. My throat tightened. Of course he does. And I love him too. But thanks to you, his world is about to be shattered. How do I even explain that I'm not his real dad? She covered her face, shoulders shaking with sobs. I felt a flicker of pity, quickly smothered by the memory of her betrayal. "I'm sorry," she choked out. "I was afraid you'd hate him if you knew. That you'd walk away. And here we are," I said, my tone flat. "I'm divorcing you, not him. If he wants me in his life, I'll be there. But you, I can't forgive." Her tears flowed freely, drawing looks from nearby patrons. She fumbled for tissues. "I understand," she whispered. "Just, please don't take my kids away." I glared at her. "Don't worry. I won't be as cruel to you as you were to me. We'll figure out shared custody, but our marriage is over. And so is any illusion that I owe you kindness." Her lip trembled. She nodded. We sat there in silence, two strangers with a mountain of memories and heartbreak between us. The divorce a few tense weeks later, we made it to a settlement. Legally, I could have disowned my son, but I refused. My conditions were severe. We would share custody, but I refused spousal support, demanded child support for my daughter, and set up a trust for my son if a future DNA test connected Ethan. The court recognized the complexity, especially since I'd raised the boy from birth, and the final arrangement gave me primary custody. Julia moved into a small rental home across town. Revenge completed. Ethan's business took a hit from that anonymous tip. Word spread, and he lost multiple contracts. Julia tried to distance herself from him, eventually cutting him off entirely. I heard rumors he struggled financially, forced to pick up short-term gigs wherever he could find them. Part of me felt a cold satisfaction. Another part felt empty, realizing no amount of retribution would erase the sting of betrayal. One afternoon, my mother called, voice timid. "Michael, can we talk, please? I want to see you." My anger toward her still simmered, but I agreed. We met in her kitchen, the same bright curtains from my youth framing the window. She offered me coffee, and I reluctantly accepted. "I know I failed you," she said, tears glinting in her eyes. "I wanted to protect you from your worst habits. When you were drinking heavily, I worried." Then Julia confided her fears, and I thought if I stayed silent, you'd keep your family whole. I exhaled shakily, setting the mug aside. "You broke my trust," I said, voice tight. "But you're still my mother," she sniffled. "I hope one day you can forgive me." I stared at the kitchen tiles. It won't be soon, but maybe eventually. A tense hush settled. Then I left, uncertain if I felt relief or just lingering sadness. Final steps packing up Julia's remaining belongings took hours. I found old photos, birthday cards, souvenirs from our honeymoon. Each item stabbed me with a memory. I shoved them into boxes, taping them shut like sealing a wound. When we officially signed the divorce papers, I felt numb. My lawyer gave me a sympathetic glance. Julia signed with shaking hands, tears tracking down her cheeks. I scrawled my name, finalizing the end of our marriage. Afterward, I trudged to my car, the crisp winter air stinging my face. Something in me felt dead, like the old Michael Warren had been buried under an avalanche of pain. But there was also a flicker of relief. No more secrets, no more delusions. Epilogue weeks stretched into months. I continued caring for the kids, driving them to school, cheering at soccer games. My daughter seemed to sense my sadness, hugging me often. My son, our son, asked pointed questions about why Mom didn't live with us anymore. I navigated them gently, never letting him believe I wasn't his father in every way that mattered. Sometimes, late at night, I'd stand by the window, gazing at the dark, quiet street. I'd recall the day I discovered Julia's betrayal and the swirl of events that followed. A part of me still ached, but it was tempered by a steely resilience. I survived. One chilly evening, I bundled the kids into my car and drove to that cabin in Wisconsin where I found solace once upon a time. The lake was frozen, its surface glittering under a pale moon. We lit a fire in the hearth, my children giggling as they toasted marshmallows. For the first time in months, I felt something like peace. The past was a ruin, but the future, well, it was wide open. I had made my choice. I sought revenge, I ended the marriage, and I hurt those who hurt me. But the children were still in my care, and I would love them fiercely, no matter what. As the flames crackled, my son leaned against my shoulder. "Dad, this is fun," he whispered. I closed my eyes, inhaling the smoky warmth. "Dad." My heart clenched with a mixture of gratitude and lingering sorrow. But at least that word, Dad, still belonged to me. I pulled the blanket tighter around us, stirring the embers. Life had moved on in a way I never anticipated, but I was alive, breathing, forging a new path. The aftershocks of betrayal still rumbled beneath my feet, yet I stood firm, determined to protect what remained of my family. And in that quiet moment, wrapped in the comfort of my children's presence, I found a hint of resolve. I might never fully heal, but I would live. I would love. And I would not be defined solely by the wounds others had inflicted. Outside, the wind sighed against the pine trees, carrying whispered memories into the starry sky. I closed my eyes and allowed myself a small, hopeful breath. This was my life now, scared but mine.